I'm happy in my home and my experience with Robyn.
Robyn gave the perfecter actions tell a very different story.
It's crazy because people think when they split, when they divorce or whatever, that they won't have to see each other, and that's not true.
Robyn comments in her one-on-one that sharing children means staying connected in each other's lives. It's a fair argument, though it may not reflect how things actually play out for some people.
If he does sign the paperwork and say, look, I will relinquish my rights so that Cody can adopt the kids, it makes it look like he's looking out for the best interest.
Unless, for example, you remove your kids from their father's life and pressure him into signing away his parental rights so someone else can adopt them.
After that, Robyn just said, Dad and I have decided our kids aren't going to do the gift exchange anymore.
Or unless you act like two of your husband's daughters don't exist simply because you're upset with their mothers. So maybe that statement only applies to other people.
It's really easy to sit there and be in a place with Robyn in that intimacy and that safety.
Robyn has a pattern. She gives the most polished, socially acceptable answer, then behaves in the exact opposite way. There's a certain look she gets when she's doing it too, eyes closed or glancing up and to the right, like she's hoping no one will notice the contradiction.
Together, in a lot of ways.
They do. And Mary is by herself in her home. And
Earlier in the series, Cody once said that if any of his wives wanted to leave, he'd build them a house and pay them extra just to stay involved with their kids. Funny how that principle disappeared over time, again, unless Robyn is involved.
So that Cody can adopt the kids, it makes it look like he's looking out for the best interest of the kids.
And then there's the unanswered question. How exactly did she handle things with her ex? If there's anyone who insists on having all the answers, it's Robyn, so why leave that part out? He didn't need to yell, he didn't need to threaten. One stare was all it took, and that's more dangerous than people realize. Near the conclusion of part 2, Suki posed a direct question to Cody.
If you're saying I was just a piece of meat.
That question. That's not what it is. These are loving relationships.
Was it a physical relationship?
Instead of answering like an adult or even saying something as simple as, I'm not comfortable answering that, he chose to perform a little act. He glanced down, fussed with an imaginary speck on his jacket, and then slowly looked up to give her a long, silent stare. It was a deliberate move. He wasn't avoiding the question. He was trying to intimidate her. Suki didn't flinch. She met his stare head on, cool and steady, as if to say, is this supposed to scare me because I've got all day? Her calm refusal to be rattled said more than any words could have. It was a quiet kind of strength, especially in the face of someone trying so hard to assert dominance. If anyone else had reacted that way during an interview, it might be written off as nerves or awkwardness.
I do believe she said, well, if this isn't safe.
Yeah, okay. Listen, Suki.
Right?
I want to shut you down now. I know you guys
You can't
want to
shut me
talk.
down.
But this wasn't that. This was calculated. He used silence and body language to try to shut down the conversation, which raises serious questions, especially considering this was on camera where most people try to present their best selves. The intensity of his reaction was unsettling. If this is how he behaves publicly in a professional setting, it begs the question, what happens when no one's watching? Suki's poise in that moment was telling. She didn't call him out, and perhaps that was wise. Challenging him directly might have escalated things. He clearly doesn't handle being questioned well, and it's likely he would have pushed back hard. Maybe not on camera, but certainly behind the scenes. This moment revealed a lot about how he operates. His demeanor changes depending on who he's talking to. Around men, he's affable and charming. Around women, especially those who challenge him, he tries to assert control through silence, glares, and posturing.
I want to shut you down now. I know you guys
You
want
can't
to
shut me
talk.
down.
Yeah, I can.
No, you can't.
I don't have to say the answer.
That kind of behavior, masked as intensity or frustration, is deeply manipulative. It's not just unprofessional, it's threatening. And yet, he's being paid to sit in a chair, refuse to answer questions, and glower at the interviewer. The contrast between Suki's professionalism and his hostility couldn't have been more stark. She didn't rise to the bait. She let the silence hang, unbothered. And in doing so, she took the power right out of his stare. If nothing else, this moment showed the importance of accountability, especially when someone is clearly used to getting their way through intimidation rather than conversation. Cody Brown just admitted he regrets his family, and it's worse than you think.
Marrying these women and living a plural life. Would you do it all again?
No.
When asked if he would go back and do it all over again with his original 3 wives, he didn't even hesitate. No, he said, just like that. No pause, no reflection, no mention of his 12 living children, not a second spared for the people he helped bring into the world. Just no.
The struggles of plural marriage make me just think that it's a waste of time.
He went on to say it was all a waste of time, a complete waste. The very life that gave him a platform, a livelihood, and the money he enjoys now, dismissed like it meant nothing. He acts as if none of it had value, and yet it's the only reason he has what he does. Without that original family structure, would Robyn, whose well-timed glances in church seemed more like strategic maneuvering than romance, have shown any interest at all?
Are you happy now?
I'm happy in my home and my experience with Robyn, sans my ex-wives.
Everything he's built, including his relationship with Robyn, traces back to the wives and children he now treats as disposable. According to him, life didn't even begin until Robyn came along. He doesn't seem to view fatherhood as a relationship, only a role that exists when it feeds his ego.
It's been 6 months of, oh, Dad, this is a dumb idea. Oh, Dad, this isn't fair to us. Oh, Dad. And I'm like, all you would have to do is change your behavior.
When his children or wives no longer worshipped him, he no longer wanted them. In his world, if they don't serve his image, they don't count. Any real parent, when asked whether they'd change the past, would say no, because their children came from it. That's what love looks like. That's what it means to be a parent. To value your children more than your pride or comfort. But in his case, the love just isn't there, not in the way it should be.
I just wish he would have sat us all down and said, look, I found the love of my life. I found Robyn. She and I are soulmates, and we want to live together for the rest of our life.
If he had simply acknowledged years ago that he fell in love with Robyn and chose her, it could have spared everyone immense pain. But he won't admit fault. He never has. She made her child believe she was dying while knowing she wasn't.
And finally, our doctor just says, take her to the hospital. People go to the hospital to die.
I was crying and praying, and because I was like scared.
Robyn ended up in the hospital with COVID, because of course she did. At a time when PPE was in critically short supply, she chose to use hospital resources for what appeared to be a completely unnecessary visit. Instead of trusting medical advice, she seemed determined to escalate the situation, pulling attention away from truly ill patients and exhausted healthcare workers.
You mean because of this or because I'm touching? Because you're touching. Aurora has been having panic attacks.
As if that weren't enough, she made her children believe she might die, despite being discharged shortly after and showing no signs of severe illness. Aurora's visible distress was heartbreaking, especially considering there didn't seem to be any real cause for alarm.
99.8. All right.
And then there was Cody, dramatically holding up a thermometer like it was definitive proof of a medical emergency. It read 99.8 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 37.6 degrees Celsius. Barely a raised temperature. Hardly worth a second glance, let alone a hospital visit. The theatrics were staggering. While others battled for their lives, many without access to care, this display felt completely detached from the reality so many faced. It wasn't just tone deaf. It was offensive, especially for those who endured genuine trauma, prolonged illness, or the loss of loved ones.
I feel like I did a deadlift workout.
Robyn reportedly kept pushing her doctor for more serious answers until, finally, they told her to go in, likely just to reassure her. It wasn't about actual danger. It was about refusing to hear anything other than what supported the narrative of crisis. The entire situation came off as a self-centered performance, utterly oblivious to the pain others were living through. If a woman did what Cody Brown did, she'd be excommunicated. But him, he calls it destiny. Reflecting on the early dynamics between Cody and Robyn, it's hard not to question whether their connection crossed into emotional affair territory.
I'll tell you what, there's a divine aspect about my relationship with Robyn, and we have been bitch slapped for it.
Cody described feeling a kind of divine love for Robyn, something he then tried to replicate in his other marriages, unsuccessfully, according to his former wives.
That's 100% a lie.
They've made it clear he never extended the same emotional effort toward them. From the start, the premise was that his wives gave consent to the courtship, but that consent hinged on the belief that Cody would be honest.
That's a hard confession to make when I was working really hard to hide what Robyn and I had.
Omitting the depth of his feelings for Robyn wasn't just misleading. It was manipulation through selective silence. It was repeatedly claimed that if any of the wives had objected, the courtship would have ended. But how could they voice objections to a situation they didn't fully understand? That kind of half-truth creates a dynamic where consent is given under a veil of ignorance.
Meanwhile, contrast this with how Mary's emotional involvement with someone online was received, labeled a betrayal. And yet, the early Robyn romance was full of behavior that clearly crossed established boundaries.
We didn't kiss until over the altar because I didn't feel right about kissing a married man. And so to me, the fact that he had kissed Robyn was devastating.
They kissed before the wedding, a line that Christine had explicitly said should not be crossed. Mary agreed.
I think him going down to see Robyn is tearing us apart a bit.
Life, it was not a problem for me.
Only Janelle appeared indifferent, but 2 out of 3 spouses believing it was inappropriate should have mattered.
Truly was being born, and I went over to just see how things were with Robyn. Robyn and I were just engaged, and I had to kiss her goodbye.
There was even a moment when the couple was caught on camera kissing, while Christine was in labor. At that point, Cody had driven several hours, allegedly to sleep on the couch. In context, the idea seems less like innocent courtship and more like a willful disregard for relationship boundaries. In their conservative religious framework, these actions held weight. Even if kissing isn't a major offense in broader culture, within their belief system, it signified a breach. The relationship, by those standards, was both emotional and physical, well before any vows were exchanged. Yet none of it was labeled as an affair. Why? Because it benefited Cody. His narrative remained intact, while others were held to rigid moral standards. What was considered betrayal for Mary became divine destiny for him. The rules apparently were not meant to apply equally. Ultimately, it's a familiar story. A man in midlife finds new affection in a younger partner and reframes it as spiritual fulfillment. The only twist here is polygamy. But strip away the theology and what's left is painfully ordinary. One man rewriting the rules to suit himself, while those around him are expected to accept it in silence. Budgeting didn't make her rich, marrying the right person did. All right then, Robyn, show us the proof.
And then I learned during my divorce really how to budget myself.
You say your lavish set of assets came from careful budgeting after your first divorce?
How do you calculate? How do you figure that out? It's so confusing.
True, it should be easy enough to verify. Show receipts, provide bank records. Any accountant could look at them and confirm whether you personally paid for everything.
4 mommy dolls and 1 daddy doll.
And let's talk about the nearly $65,000 spent on dolls and doll clothing. That figure alone comes from just one platform and only includes items with posted reviews. It's almost certainly just a fraction of the total. How exactly is that an example of smart financial planning?
But I used to always be surprised at how nice her backyard was. It was completely finished. And
it's not hard to see why people question where the money came from. And claiming to be better at budgeting than others, that's rich.
And my income covers them.
Especially when living expenses are covered by someone else, and you're free to use your own income however you please. Moving into a paid-for apartment and setting your bills aside for someone else to deal with doesn't exactly scream financial independence.
I was divorced, and in the divorce, I took responsibility for a lot of the debt.
Let's not forget, over $30,000 in debt was brought into the family from the beginning, yet somehow you're the financial role model? Here's the real story.
You're saying that the business is not viable.
I just don't know. I mean, to me, it's like it's a hobby business. It's not a real business.
You haven't held a conventional job since joining the family, yet you've taken your share of income from public projects, plus a portion of your spouse's.
They shared the house payments, they shared the utilities, they shared everything.
Unlike the other households, yours enjoys multiple incomes, which makes it far easier to budget and appear financially disciplined.
Sometimes Janelle will throw in for groceries and stuff.
Meanwhile, expenses like groceries and bills were often covered by shared funds, giving your household more flexibility. When you only feed your own children and don't contribute to others' needs, of course there's money left for luxury purchases, boutique collectibles, and overpriced treats.
Then I focused mostly on sort of getting the cars for the kids, basically had a fleet.
And Cody? He's long treated the collective finances as his personal reserve, justifying it with occasional contributions like used cars for the kids, while acting as if that alone makes him the financial backbone. In reality, it's easy to appear financially stable when responsibilities are minimized and extra funds are spent freely. But that's not budgeting. That's privilege. True financial hardship teaches restraint and perspective. That kind of struggle clearly hasn't touched this household. Stop expecting the people who hurt you to be the ones who heal you.
So today is Mary's moving day. Cody's over there with her, helping pack up.
The goodbye moment as Mary gets ready to move on turns tense when Robyn shows up with a farewell gift. The interaction feels stiff and uneasy, lacking genuine warmth.
I just wanted to bring you a little. Thank you.
Robyn, oddly enough, takes it upon herself to open the gift she's supposedly giving. The gesture feels impatient and self-focused. Typically, the recipient opens the present, not the giver. This small detail sets the tone for what follows.
Oh, that's pretty.
And they're always an angel by your side.
The gift itself is underwhelming, tacky, mismatched, and clearly more in line with Robyn's personal taste than Mary's. The look on Mary's face is telling. Her polite expression can't quite hide the fact that she's unimpressed.
It's basically a journal with a whole bunch of like pictures and cute little papers.
Then comes the explanation. Robyn begins to justify the gift, which only underscores how little thought went into it. When a gift needs an explanation, it usually means it isn't meaningful to the person receiving it. Given Mary's genuine bond with Robyn's children, a framed photo of them, or even of the family, would have held far more sentiment.
We're gonna give it a little pressure.
On the bottom or just here?
It's difficult to ignore the sense that the entire moment was orchestrated for the cameras. Without the presence of a production crew, it's doubtful this staged goodbye or Robyn's dramatic gift presentation would have taken place at all. Even Cody's appearance to help feels performative, more for the sake of optics than genuine support. Logistically, it's implausible that just a few people managed to pack Mary's large home and inventory into a single moving truck. It seems likely that the actual moving process happened off-camera, and what viewers saw was merely a brief, symbolic moment.
It's a junk journal.
The journal Robyn gave as a farewell gift seems especially mismatched. Its style aligns more with Robyn's preferences, raising questions about whether it was selected thoughtfully or simply repurposed from a recent personal purchase. It lacks the kind of personal significance one would expect from someone claiming to be a close confidant after years of shared life.
I wish you happiness in your next chapter.
The overall impression is that the gift was a last-minute grab, lacking in both intention and understanding. Rather than honoring Mary's departure with something heartfelt or memorable, the gesture feels juvenile and disconnected, as if Robyn failed to grasp who Mary is and what would truly matter to her in that moment. Thanks for watching Reality Nexus X. If you felt it, hit like let's hit 1,000. Subscribe for more. I'm Elena. Bye now. Ta-ta.